Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the EPoSS and EPSI Annual Forum 2020. My name is Evelyn Gläser and I will moderate this event for you. We are all very pleased about the great interest in this year's annual forum. Nearly 400 participants have registered for this conference. Before we start with the program, I would like to give you some brief technical information. If you no longer see the webinar tool on your screen, just click on the flower icon in your taskbar. Furthermore, you can fold and unfold the menu using the orange arrow key. If you want to ask a question, please enter it in the window Fragen or Questions. We will collect the questions and the speakers will have an opportunity to answer them orally at the end of each session in the Questions and Answers panel. Since we have a very tight schedule, I ask you to understand that we may perhaps not be able to answer all the questions. If your audio connection is not working, make sure you have chosen the right speaker. Click on the Audio tab and select the speaker or headphones you want to use. If your audio connection does not work, you can also dial in by phone. You will find the telephone number in your invitation email. If the connection fails completely during the webinar, simply dial in again. Unfortunately, it sometimes happens that the webinar tool does not run stable because the provider servers are overloaded. In this case, we would briefly interrupt the webinar and restart it. Please dial in again after a few minutes. We would like to inform you that this webinar is being recorded and that we are also going to save the questions that are asked. In case of further technical issues, please contact us via chat. Finally, I would like to introduce Carlo Lux to you, who is responsible for the technical support today. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to warmly welcome our session chairpersons for today. Stefan Finkbeiner, EPoSS Chairman, Elisabeth Steinmetz, EPoSS Office Director, Christine Neu, CEO of Microtech Südwest, and Stefan Kamann, who represents our host and EPoSS member Hans Schickert. The session chairs will accompany you throughout the whole conference and will moderate the Q&A panels at the end of each session. Let us now take a brief look at today's program. You can experience 4 sessions today. At the end of the day, you also have the opportunity to take part in an exciting workshop. Now I would like to hand over to Stefan Finkbeiner, the chairman of EPoSS. He is general manager and CEO of Bosch Sensortec. We are very glad that he agreed to chair the opening session entitled Future Funding Priorities for European Recovery. Mr. Finkbeiner, we are looking forward to your welcome speech.
Okay, hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everybody, to the 2020 EPoSS Annual Forum. And to be more correct, it's an EPoSS EPSI Annual Forum. It's also something specific. And welcome everybody on this, let's say, unusual format. Instead of being in Freiburg, which I would have enjoyed very much, and being together with the colleagues from Microtech and from Hans Schickert, for example. So it's, for example, Christine Neu, who supports this, and also colleagues from Hans Schickert Institute. Now we have to do it online. And as you see, we have to practice. So a special thanks for everybody to use this new format and hopefully learn with us how to handle it and get also vivid discussions later on. This year's event, I mentioned, is organized from EPoSS with the strategic partner EPSI, the European Platform for Sport Innovation within the European Week of Sports. Moreover, the event is hosted by EPoSS member Hans Schickert and supported by Microtech Südwest. Special thanks to those organizations. And we have also people doing the sessions, Stefan Kamann, Rainer Günster, and Christine Neu. Thank you very much for supporting the EPoSS event this year. I want to say also a special welcome and thanks already to the speakers of the first session, which are Lucilla Sioli, Stefan Mengel, which is a short-term change which we have right now, and we have Frey, Bert Colvenaer, and the keynote speaker Markus Riester. Coming back to EPSI, special thanks for EPSI to make this happen. It shows how international and cross-functional also the smart system event is. We have a lot of opportunities for cooperation, and Alberto Bicchi and René Williams supported this co-located event. A special thanks to this. So the session of the first session is called Funding Priorities for European Recovery, and I want to use the time to give you an insight in what we are driving first from an EPoSS side, and then add to this a little bit more content with some examples on the Bosch and side, especially how we contribute to, let's see, new topics, new funding opportunities to create new revenue opportunities within this framework of smart systems. So I want to start with the first EPoSS slide and give you a little bit an overview. If you talk about EPoSS, we are talking about smart systems. And what are smart systems? Of course, we are talking about typically a sensor or an actor or a combination of both. And the special things looking forward is that these devices are becoming smart and intelligent. It means we have a microcontroller in, we have software in, and with the software inside, we can do a lot of things. We can also go to AI, artificial intelligence. And if we talk about artificial intelligence, we are talking about edge AI, so included in the device, included in a sensor, and have really a remote device which is intelligent and can provide significant information. And this is, of course, relevant for different industries. So it has to be self-functional and has to be safe, reliable, and be able to provide significant information maybe to a bigger system. So it could be a sensor, including a microcontroller and software, for example, as an example. It could be a LiDAR system, which we are talking about. You have a connection to the outer world, as you see on the graph on the lower right now, but you have intelligence to really already evaluate the data and provide evaluated information for actuation or for transformation of the signals. Sometimes we can also be energy autonomous, depending on the application where we have. So it's a system, it's by far not a component, it's a system which can be rather complex and where also software becomes more and more important. If you look, where are these, let's say, smart systems relevant? And the answer is all over, everywhere. If you look at the examples shown on this slide, of course, it's the industrial market where you have sensors and actors and local decision making. So, for example, the robot shown on the left side has different sensors to figure out where a human being can be, but also sensors in this functional head to detect pieces and to steer the actuation. We talk about medical applications. So shown is in this example an intraocular pressure measurement, which is provided from STM. And if you think about automotive, there are a lot of new systems, and you also have a good idea on the participation of the systems in advanced driver assistance functions. So, for example, LiDAR, radar, combination of these two in a subsystem. So all these we would also call smart systems, and they drive very often also megatrend, like in this case, autonomous driving. Very important, and I will also have an example for this, is also the environmental sensing. An example of Fraunhofer shown on the right-hand side, where you have a gas sensor, which gives you relevant information, for example, also to help to prevent from COVID. And we'll have an example later on, very actual, this information. And also in all these applications, AI is an important topic. So self-learning functions, where you can adapt it to specific situations or learn out of specific situations, train some devices like the computers. This is the specific thing. It's not only sensing and acting. So all the devices are becoming also smart and intelligent and self-learning. And that's a new topic within this framework of Horizon Europe and Eureka projects, which we want to address also in the futures. So let's look at the next slide. What is driving EPoSS activity. Where are our heads and resources on? Of course, it's really getting Horizon Europe implemented, a very important topic which we have to drive. It's also taking care for the small, mid-sized enterprises. That's a real topic in the future programs, especially on the European platforms. They complain about huge efforts which they have to take. So how do we get also frameworks or maybe platforms for SMEs? That's what we try to do. And we have started an activity to integrate Euripides community into EPoSS. So find a home there, also with new funding opportunities to also address topics which have been addressed so far from Euripides. I think that's a good move. Will strengthen the European side also of the smart systems and hopefully also bring all the members out of Euripides into the EPoSS platform. ECSEL is another focus. So how do we transfer the JU in the next phase? So together with the partners from ENEAS and Artemis, set up new framework for Horizon Europe out of the JU perspective right now. We have focus on automotive activities to zero emission, for example, and CCAM partnerships, which we want to set up in these areas. And of course, we want to intensify our cooperation with different associations, as for example, these days now with the European Platform of Sports, as we do it right now. And there is a lot of initiatives going on beyond this. It's not only different initiatives from an application point. I think for me, it's a special interest to also integrate the local clusters all over Europe in these European activities. An example today is Microtech Südwest, where we say, okay, that's a start. We try to get the members in and try to connect also the local small, mid-sized members of these local clusters into the European platforms and the European fundings. Our positions, if we talk about KDT partnerships, it's necessary that we have more focus on systems integration and including AI, bringing different competencies together to make more. Yes, also hardware is still necessary. It's not that it's only software. We need a complete solution. It means hardware integration, and it means also software integration, means also edge AI. One important topic is funding rates for companies. We have some members within EPoSS which do not participate currently in some funding projects because of the funding rates. We have to address this also. And we have to make sure that also within the European framework, we are able to make smaller projects happen to also bring maybe smaller members into these projects. And we have to reduce the bureaucratic burden and furthermore, give more room to industry positions as the customers of the program. So I mentioned that some big industry members are not participating in some of the programs because of funding rates. So we need a solution because we have to have the small and mid-sized enterprises in, but we need also the big companies to drive the European funding initiatives and get the right things done to have revenue and market leadership also in the market. Right-hand side of the chart, the new Eureka clusters, integrating Euripides is something we drive, give a voice to the smart systems community and the SMEs, integrate Euripides members, simplify organizational structures. In the corporations, don't set up new structures and infrastructures. So it's all effort for everybody, costs money. Try to do it within the existing frameworks right now and leverage the synergies we have in the KDT domain also. Horizon Europe, the more ambitious industrial research projects in the field of smart systems, functional electronics, try to get more smart system projects because I think they are relevant into this funding in the future. More focus and more budget necessary to reduce also the oversubscription. So people say it's not that attractive if I have a lot of effort and I have a low chance to be successful. How can we solve this issue? And improve also the conditions of participations for small, mid-sized enterprises. There is a paper around which I refer to here where you can see some of the statements which are important to bring them in. In total, we are talking about more than 6,000 innovative companies within European Union, which are part of the smart systems network. And we talk about more than 800,000 people, and 8% of them are involved in the R&D right now with a budget of almost 10 billion euro per year. So that's also a big topic which we want to make sure those people are addressed via EPoSS and the partners, and can be part of also all the funding initiatives within the European Union. Let me make it a little bit more concrete right now. The smart systems go down to the MEMS market right now. And sorry for the small letters. What you see is a chart out of a YOL report. It's not from us. And the main message is not about the revenues. The main message I have here, if you look at the MEMS companies, the big guys are in Europe. So it's Robert Bosch, it's STMicro, it's NXP, it's Infineon. And we have to make sure that this stays also this way, that we keep ahead and of the competition on a worldwide base, that we leverage our good position also to keep this leadership for the next 5 and 10 years. And that's what we have to address. Main message of this slide. So how do we get these companies in this new phase of MEMS, for example, making them smart, making them intelligent, bring software in, address new applications in new application fields, for example. That's key topic to be addressed also by Horizon Europe. And it's worth to do it. It's also a chart from YOL, which you see on this chart. There is growth in the MEMS for the next year. And the growth is also in different markets, as you see listed. I do not want to go in all details, but the key message is, first, there is a significant growth of more than 7% CAGR. And the growth is driven by several industries which have high relevance for Europe also. So let's try to get the opportunities with the products, and let's try to get the opportunities with the cooperations in different markets and the partnerships, as we do it with EPSI today right now. That should be, and I'm convinced it is, a strength of Europe. Let's leverage this potential within the funding initiatives of the next years. So if we get even more concrete, I talked about edge AI. I talked about you have maybe sensors or actors or combination of this, which are addressing AI. So what is edge AI? If you look at the graph on the lower left, you see some sensors, could be inertial sensors, gyroscopes, gas sensors, whatever. And these sensors have included a microcontroller and a software. And if we talk about these products, we talk about small microcontrollers. We talk about memories of several hundred kilobytes, not megabytes, yes, 100 kilobytes or a little bit more. So it's really making something happen on a small device with low power, for example, and have also local decision making in these devices and transfer data already on an aggregated status, maybe to an edge network or maybe to a cloud. So combine subsystems to systems or even bring it in the cloud. So an example could be a sensor, an accelerometer, for example, including a microcontroller, small microcontroller with some memory. Why is it necessary to do it? All people talk about cloud. It does not replace cloud, but there are a lot of use cases which require also local intelligence and local artificial intelligence. And reasons are listed on the right-hand side. So it's about personalization and user adaptation, make sensors more accurate right now. For example, step counting, make this more precise. Privacy and security of user data, not everything has to be in the cloud. And sometimes it's also about latency, so real-time feedback. Sometimes going to the cloud, if you think about autonomous driving systems, are too slow to bring them into the cloud and make some of the decisions. And it's also, and that's a very important and essential point, it's also saving energy. Transmitting data wireless or via a cable costs a lot of energy, so you should only transfer data and information which is relevant to save energy. It's a big topic which is completely underestimated. So aggregate data locally and transfer only to edge nodes or networks and cloud what is necessary. And this is what we address with edge AI. Having small pieces of software, making local decisions or aggregation, evaluation of data, and then transfer or cause an action even locally or transfer relevant data to the cloud wherever necessary. So we are talking about, in the case of MEMS devices, of very, very small sensors. So you see several examples. So for example, smart glasses. Smart glasses, laser projection, you will hear in a talk tomorrow from Lukas Kinzinger during the EPoSS annual forum. I refer to this. What we see here is people tapping on hearables and wearables. So on, for example, earphones in the mid or on a watch on the right-hand side. And it's all about really having systems where you can personalize some of the features. So you can really personalize, for example, step counting. You can personalize gestures. You can personalize HMI functionality. This is what you can do. You can make them also context sensitive. So, for example, shaking a head is a different function than something else. You can train these things and you can optimize your fitness tracking. And the important thing with respect to embedded AI is that these systems are getting self-learning and can even be trained. That's one cluster. I have 1 or 2 slides which I will show you. And the other example is environmental sensing, where you can use gas sensors, for example, to do an air quality monitoring, which is relevant for COVID. And you can also do a pattern recognition. That's something I will show you on the slide. So if you could, for the first example, could be, for example, inertial sensors, magnetic sensors in a device which you have on your wrist or in your ears or in glasses, for example, and you get sensor data. And what now the intelligence is doing, you have a learning movement. So you can optimize, for example, the amount of steps or calorie counting with an exact fingerprint, which is really personalized over the time. So it's learning during the use and adapting to the personal situation of the people who wear it right now to make it more accurate or give more relevant information. So, for example, for fitness tracking, that's the other example. And if we go to the lower example, we can even train new exercises. So the systems are that intelligent that you can train new practices. You say that's a new use case, which I do very often, what the lady is doing on the lower right. So I want to really put this in my system and say, I want to see how I make the move ups with the weights in the hand, and I can put this as a, let's say, detectable movement in my system. So it's getting intelligent, and I can classify it also, and I can really address this also in use to address new applications. That's of course important for the companies who make application. You could on these sensors, but you could also give it to the users to train their personal nodes. And that's what you can do if you have intelligence in the system and you are learning on the fly. The other example, before I come to closure, is having a gas sensor in use. So what I'm talking about is a VOC sensor, which may detect VOCs, maybe also CO2s. And the use case of this is right now, we would like to use this to detect aerosols. Aerosol is the big elephant in the room for detecting COVID. And what these sensors can do, of course, they can detect exhaled breath. And with respect to exhaled breath, we can make a correlation to aerosols. And that's what we can use to set up a, let's say, a traffic light for ventilation. We are starting these examples in our offices right now. It's a very easy way to say, okay, what is coming out of the breath contains a lot of VOCs. So there is a direct correlation which we can make to the aerosols. And that's what we want to leverage to bring a sensor on device who wants you and helps to do ventilation. These are the measurements which are in humidity, temperature, air quality, which are detected. And also these systems can be self-learning. If I know the context around, I can detect how many people are in a room, which gases could it be, depending on the systems. So you can make even a pattern recognition and classify some of the cases which are in due to the, let's say, context, if I'm aware of this. So there's also intelligence necessary and artificial intelligence to improve these kind of sensors on the fly. My time is over. I want to say thank you for now and hand over to the moderator.
Thank you too, Mr. Finkbeiner, for this interesting presentation. I already saw some questions. Questions to all the presentations of this session will be answered in the Q&A panel at the end of the session. So you can already start asking now using the chat window, and please also indicate which speaker you are addressing your question to. Now we warmly welcome Lucilla Sioli, who is the Director of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Industry within DG Connect at the European Commission. We look forward to your presentation, Ms. Sioli.
Thank you very much and good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me to open this important event. I'm very glad to see about the progress that companies that are very active in EPoSS are making. As it has just been explained by the previous speaker, it's really fascinating what you're doing. And what I will do today is to try to see how the European Union can contribute financially and with its own vision to developments in this very exciting field. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we do.
Yes, okay. So let me first start by saying that I would say that maybe the biggest novelty that we should be aware about is the fact that digital and also microelectronics and embedded systems have become very important in the political discourse at the level of the European Union. There is a number of factors that have brought this into play. Certainly one of them is the importance that digital acquired during the COVID period. And we have just seen in the previous presentation an example of how technologies can be useful in for protecting us from COVID, but also in the past very difficult months, we have seen how our telework, for example, relied heavily on our telecom networks. We have seen artificial intelligence being used in hospitals to read CT scans of COVID patients. We have seen tracing applications. We have seen artificial intelligence and HPC being used to identify the molecules for the drugs that are necessary for curing COVID, and also, again, artificial intelligence very active in the fight, in the discovery, let's put it this way, of the vaccine. But we have also seen some weaknesses in the European Union in terms of resilience. I mean, not only we have some important gaps, I mentioned the connectivity, the important connectivity, our telecom networks that kept us all connected, but most of the video conferencing tools that we have are not Europeans. And in the specific fields of microelectronics, for example, we have seen that the fact that some of the borders have been closed for some time has represented an issue in terms of transport of materials or production taking place. And to this, of course, this is aggravated by current trade tensions that, of course, make it also difficult for the European Union to be or to feel the possibility of being completely reliable on some steps in the production of our chips and sensors from other parts of the world. So in the State of the Union speech of our President von der Leyen, this is a speech that takes place once a year and where the President of the European Commission underlines or highlights her political vision. She, because of all these reasons, has highlighted the importance that digital has in our economies. It has helped us during COVID, but of course it's at the source of our restarting of our economy, and of the fact that we shouldn't be so reliable we shouldn't depend so much on the production and on the imports from other countries, not because we want to be autarkic, but simply because there are moments where we actually need to be able to develop and produce our items, and we have to do that with certain characteristics that respect our values. For example, in her speech, she says specifically, we want the European industry to develop our own next generation microprocessor that will allow us to use the increasing data volumes energy efficient and securely. So this is important for two reasons. The first one is the fact that we have a president of the Commission who mentions microprocessors. I have to say that microelectronics and embedded systems were probably not mentioned before in States of the Union speeches, where probably digital was never even emphasized as much as it has been this time. And secondly, I want to bring your attention to the characteristics of energy efficient and security and trusted components and systems that are highlighted in this speech. I would say that, you know, the climate goals are so important for the European Union at this time. You know, we have very specific climate neutrality objectives that are being set for 2050 with a target also for 2030. That it is very important what microelectronics and embedded systems can do from this point of view, because obviously they power all the smart products and devices that we have today, that we keep on multiplying thanks to all the advances that we make also in the area of sensors, that we are really as a sector at the forefront of contributing to a more energy efficient world, exactly because we produce those chips and those sensors that are active in an increasing number of devices and products. And therefore, we're at the core of what's going to be the green digital transition, and we will be shaping it exactly by embedding these chips and these components in all the different products and sectors of our economy. So we will be shaping the energy transition, the green transition, also through our work. And we also want these components and systems to be secure and safe, to be privacy enhancing, but also because they will go into our automated cars, into our healthcare systems, they have to be super secure. So these elements of energy efficiency and security and safety, or trusted components as we call them, are very important in shaping our digital transition in the future. And these are what we call our European values. Whoops. Sorry, I think I'm having a little problem with the presentation. I don't know how you see this slide. I see it's very out of place with very big fonts. I don't know what's happening, but I will just talk to you through these slides, even if it maybe cannot be read. With this slide, I wanted to bring to your attention the fact that a week ago, the European Commission has published a strategic document called the Sustainable Growth Survey 2021. This is a strategy that is actually published by the European Commission every year. But this year, this strategy, which is a little bit our European economic strategy, where the Commission also normally tells member states where they should put in place their structural reforms. This year, this is particularly important because it links to the NextGeneration EU funding, which is a new kind of funding that has been introduced by the Commission recently as a follow-up to the COVID crisis. The NextGeneration EU includes a specific instrument called Recovery and Resilience Facility, which amounts to more than 700 billion euros, which can be distributed through loans and through grants, which is distributed to the member states. And the member states can use this money to restart the economy, and basically they have to make and design projects and make commitments with this new budget and commit the budget in the next 2 years. The member states are preparing reform plans, national reform plans. You may read a lot about in the press nowadays in all the European countries, where they basically summarize the projects that can be in there. And the novelty is that this document has been published with a set of guidelines which identified a number of flagships. And one of the flagships, called Scale Up, is actually a flagship that reflects all investment in what we call high tech or advanced tech, which is essentially HPC, high performing computing, cloud, but also microelectronics and embedded systems. And I want to highlight this because it's very important then to give the signal to the member states that projects in these fields can restart our economy, and we are inviting the member states to invest in these fields. Generally speaking, we're inviting the member states to spend 20% of the budget of the Recovery and Resilience Facility for digital. If I now show, I see I have a problem with the slides, probably because I'm showing them through an iPad rather than through a PC, and this is creating some problems. If I go to the, let's say, more traditional kind of financing of digital policy, so what I have just mentioned is the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is essentially a new budget that has been put available by the European Union to the member states. Now, if I rather focus on the European programs for the next multi-annual financial program, which actually starts next year, and so these are the programs that are under discussion now. First of all, we have the Horizon Europe program, which you all know very well. This is our research program. This is where we finance research and innovation in microelectronics and embedded systems. This is where we finance the joint undertaking KDT, but also other calls outside the JU in these areas. We have a new program, which is the Digital Europe program. This is a program of almost 7 billion euros on the basis of the proposal of the Council and the Commission. I have to say that the Parliament still has to express itself on the budget. So the budgets you see indicated here are not set in stone yet. We still need to have a trilogue on the budgets. But what is important of the Digital Euro program is that it invests in particular in 3 areas: high-performing computing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity. And there is a focus in one of the projects, in particular on the testing and experimentation facilities in artificial intelligence, also for microelectronics. So here we would like to test new applications in the area of neuromorphic, for example, for artificial intelligence.
Ms. Sioli, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have to come to the end of the presentation now. So some last words, please.
I will simply remind you that we are moving towards the key digital technology joint undertaking, where EPoSS is very active in, and our objectives are about, in terms of technological autonomy, and to support the needs of vertical industries like automotive, healthcare, and so on. We want to establish innovation leadership in emerging components and systems technologies. We want to address societal and environmental challenges, as I said earlier, and we have a special eye for small and medium enterprises. I want to highlight this point that is so important to this community. And then let me say, finally, that our efforts also with the member states will be with our own ability to cope, to strengthen our European value chains, reduce our dependencies, able to cope with geopolitical tensions, and again, mobilizing appropriate funding also with the help and in collaboration with the member states and in collaboration with the industry to address the ambitions of the European Union to be a leading region in digital, in microelectronics and embedded systems by the end of the decade. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sioli, for your exciting explanations. I would give now the floor to Stefan Mengel. Dr. Mengel is head of the Division of Electronics and Autonomous Driving at Supercomputing at the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, BMBF. We look forward to your speech, Mr. Mengel. Can't hear you right now. Can you please switch on your mic?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having the opportunity to talk today this morning. I'm the proxy of Herbert Seisel, my director, who is for unforeseen reasons not able to talk to you this morning. But I feel honored to take over and to convey to you the message from Germany's Federal Research Ministry in conjunction with what we are promoting at the moment as having the German presidency of the EU. So first, I like to say that EPoSS is, of course, and EPoSS and the representing organizations behind are representing a stronghold in Europe, and a stronghold in terms of technological sovereignty, things we need to improve and to further develop in Europe. And technological sovereignty is also one of the key issues the German presidency likes to promote on the EU level, and also the German federal government here at home on the national basis. And in that respect, we are fully in line with what Lucilla Sioli has mentioned, and also the statements given by Ursula von der Leyen in her speech, State of the Union, are impressive, and we as Germany's research ministry are fully determined to support a larger European footprint, if you like, in digital technologies. In other words, we would like to promote, to foster European digital sovereignty, which comes with technological sovereignty, and this is why we support the work of smart sensors and the work of ECSEL, and also what is in the pipeline with respect to KDT. It was already clear, even before COVID, that Europe has strong dependencies on the rest of the world in certain supply chains. In Germany in particular, electronics and ICT is number 1 and 2 in the import statistics. So it's obvious that there is a risk of technological dependencies in the sense that they might turn into political dependencies. To counter such dependencies and to protect our European approach to digitalization, we need technological sovereignty. By that, I do not mean, and it is not meant even it is not meant by what the Commission is promoting. We do not mean reshoring all manufacturing to Europe. No. Instead, I refer to the ability to understand all the technologies that we need. The ability to set our own requirements for products, employ these technologies. And last but not least, the ability to enforce these requirements, which means that we need sufficient regulatory and market power. It is the European common market, the single market, that gives us this power. It is only by sharing our sovereignty, our national sovereignty, that we can safeguard our technological and European sovereignty. To achieve technological sovereignty, we obviously need skills and knowledge, but we need our own electronics manufacturing base as well. Research is the basis for all of this. Currently, we are preparing in Germany a new program on microelectronics, which is in particular entangled or interlinked with what the EU is planning in KDT, and also with what the EU is planning on the processor side, the European Processor Initiative. So we shift our emphasis to strengthen European sovereignty by moving forward to those fields in electronics where we anticipate that we need more power, more ability, more manufacturing than we had in the past. And indeed, the processor technologies, processors with higher performance, is something which we need to foster and which we need to develop. Also, of course, with the view to edge computing, with the view to smart systems where we have already a strong position, and we try to develop from this strong position. We try to push forward into new fields of processor technology, also on the long run into unconventional computing unconventional computing capabilities or knowledge base, which we think is important if we see that the Moore approach, Moore's law, is in a way coming to an end. We need to go further. We need to prepare our knowledge base in order to be ready if new technologies arise. It's clear that we cannot achieve technological sovereignty in Germany alone. We need, of course, strongly and intensively cooperate on the EU level. That's why we support ECSEL. And ECSEL is a pillar of our national approach to microelectronics. And that's why we support also KDT as the successor. However, I have to say that I'm right now a little bit worried by the proposals the Commission has just revealed on how we should implement KDT as a partnership between the participating states in Europe and the EU. You and the other two associations represent the industry side in KDT. The proposed way of using member state contributions in the central management of financial contributions is not compatible with our national budget law today. A number of other countries have similar concerns. We are very much in favor of reducing bureaucracy for you, the potential beneficiaries in KDT, and that's the core idea behind what the Commission has proposed as a central management of financial contributions. However, there are some certain obligations which we cannot fulfill with respect with our national budget rules, and there we have a problem we need to solve in the next weeks or months in order to get KDT started already at the first or in spring. We need to get started at KDT, and this needs to run smoothly. We hope we can resolve the problems we have at the moment. In closing, let me note that the tripartite model, this model where the EU, member states, and the industry, represented by EPoSS and the other associations, work together, has resulted in a strategic coherence between industry, between the nations in Europe and the European Commission. Let us capitalize on this coherence. Let us not get lost on administrative implementation details, but rather focus on efforts on jointly strengthening this coherence to further enhance the technological sovereignty and competitiveness of Europe. You are contributing to this through your daily work. We in the Federal Ministry are determined to support that further. I thank you very much, and I wish you a fruitful conference today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your speech, Mr. Mengel. Please stay online with us for the Q&A session at the end. The next speaker is Christian Frey, who is Head of Business and Innovation at FFG, Österreichische Forschungsförderungsgesellschaft MBH. We look forward to your speech, Mr. Frey.
Okay, can you hear me well?
Yes, thank you.
Good, thanks a lot. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the Austrian Eureka chairmanship in this event that the FFG leads for the Austrian or on behalf of the Austrian Ministry of Commerce. On July the 1st, Austria has taken over this chairmanship for 1 year under very special circumstances. On the one hand, celebrates Eureka 35 years of very well done history, looking back on a very successful era of international cooperation in order to support small and medium-sized enterprises. On the other hand, and that's perhaps more importantly, I would like to make you aware that Eureka is reinventing itself. New programs will be launched, the global outreach will even be extended, and new forms of cooperation will be introduced. This is also reflected in the slogan of our chairmanship, which is called New Eureka, or also in short, Eureka, which is the headline for the new strategic roadmap for the period from 2021 to 2027. Currently, you most probably know it, Eureka has 47 member states plus the European Commission, and we are proud to say that Singapore will join the network during the Austrian chairmanship sometime next year. Eureka, and that's special, offers the opportunity to allow for international cooperation in innovation for SMEs. And the entry barriers are very low. So first of all, we're using existing infrastructure at the respective national levels, using innovation agencies there. Only 2 companies from 2 different countries are necessary to form a project consortium. And it also offers the possibility to cooperate with all 47 member states, but also beyond that. And 3 points are really unique, and the network benefits from these characteristics, which means, on the first hand, decentral management. As a rule, Eureka uses national funding agencies and national rules for implementing the innovation projects. It uses and provides access to this existing well-working infrastructure, and this makes life much easier. The second thing is the so-called variable geometry. As a rule, cooperation within Eureka requires the cooperation of only a minimum of 2 different companies coming from 2 different member states. And although Eureka covers 47 member states worldwide and is beyond that also open for cooperation with nearly every global region, the critical mass to start the cooperation is extremely low, as already indicated. And this results in an enormous degree of flexibility, and results also in the ability to easily experiment, test, and establish new programs and instruments. And third, bottom up. As a rule, Eureka programs support innovative projects in all thematic fields, as long as they address non-military purpose. And this allows Eureka not only to react fast, but also be extremely flexible to new technologies, societal or economic challenges. And I mean, my pre-speaker from the European Commission already indicated, Eureka closely cooperates with the European Commission, for example, with the EUROSTAS program, which is a partnership between the European Commission and Eureka. And currently it's going into its 3rd round. So we are currently negotiating the launch of the follow-up program called Eurostar 3. Namely, Eurostar 2 was really successful during the runtime. So we're looking for a lot more successful years. As I already said, Eureka can proudly refer to a success story which now already lasts for 35 years. But we also have to commit at the same time, but obviously we do not fully exploit the potential. Main reason is that maybe the potential, we are not using the potential, is that we are lacking visibility to potential customers, and we are failing to better exploit synergies within the network. And that's why the current renewal is ongoing, and a good example is the new cluster instrument, where Eureka will improve the efficiency and effectiveness. Up to now, Eureka clusters have been organized around 7 independent communities, but the new program will establish a highly coordinated cooperation among all those cluster communities, but will be also open to new of them, to entering the cluster instrument. And therefore, synchronized thematic calls, not only those in those clusters, will be organized, and a pilot is already going on the topic of artificial intelligence that was already mentioned as one of the highest priorities here. By organizing thematic calls, Eureka shows its ability to react fast and to contribute to the solution of the main societal and economic challenges. And there's one example. Eureka already organized a call this year on the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. But meanwhile, Eureka has become a truly global network. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic call was led by Canada, one of the major global players. And Austria, as a small open economy during its chairmanship, will support intensifying and extending the global outreach of Eureka. There exists strong positive externalities of activity. Currently, for example, we are preparing a Eureka Global Stars call with some African countries, coordinated by our associate member, South Africa. And this also reflects the goals of the Austrian chairmanship, which is titled New Eureka, I already mentioned that, with 3 main areas of action. First, it's to introduce new instruments, most prominently, of course, Eurostar 3, the partnership with the European Commission, and also the new Eureka Cluster Program, both of them already mentioned. Second, we try to enlarge and deepen the global cooperation within Eureka, which will include not only the reassociation of South Africa and Chile, but as well as welcoming a very important new member, which is Singapore. And third, by really encouraging all stakeholders to increase their engagement within Eureka and invite them for closer cooperation and coordination in this highly flexible network. And Austria, in that respect, will specifically have a focus on activities with the Western Balkan member states. And finally, coming to the end, I would like to draw your attention to 2 key events during our chairmanship. First one, we will organize a high-level political event on the occasion of the 35 years anniversary, the end of March 2021 in Vienna. This is also the event where Horizon Europe will be kicked off in Austria. We know a little late, but due to the pandemic, we had to postpone it a little. And of course, the traditional Eureka Global Innovation Summit, normally bring over 1,500 people together on innovation topics, will be organized in Graz at the end of May 2021 in a hybrid mode. You are kindly invited to participate. You will get the information soon. And we're looking forward to a successful cooperation during the Austrian chairmanship. Thank you very much again for the opportunity to present ourselves here.
Thank you, Mr. Frey, for this interesting speech. Now we warmly welcome Bert de Colvenaer. He is Executive Director of the ECSEL Joint Undertaking. ECSEL is a public-private partnership funding research, development and innovation projects in electronic components and systems. You have the floor, Mr. de Colvenaer.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. I hope you can see my screen at the moment with the presentation.
We can see it perfectly.
Perfect, thank you. Happy to be present here. I will have a short presentation on ECSEL to KDT. I think this is the point of at least common interest. And I will explain where we were and where we are going through. I would like to indicate also on the bottom of this first slide that the whole ECSEL office is in teleworking conditions, and due to the digital technology, we have been able to keep what we call business continuity. And I'm sure that despite all the disadvantages and the casualties we have experienced by the COVID, this is and may give a clear boost to the digital technologies and even further development. ECSEL is doing well. We have closed recently in September the call for proposals, the full project proposal stage. We have about 40 proposals to evaluate. We have 161 million euro to allocate. The evaluations will, in the very near future, first time done completely remotely, which is something also for us to be discovered, and sure that we will, how to say, come to good conclusions. I would also thank you for the very impressive program you have put together, including representations from the different Commission institutions, including the Cabinet of Commissioner Gabriel and more particularly the European Platform for Sports Innovations. And I'm happy to see that both Alberto and René are here. And we've been the first time in contact last year in San Sebastian. Of course, not knowing what would come up in the upcoming months, especially with the COVID. And I think not only related to the sports innovation, but also to the health and the health monitoring, what Stefan already presented in his opening speech, there is a great opportunity for digital technologies to be further developed. Allow me to go to the next slide, if I find the right buttons correct. This is the very initial report which was written by Mr. Lamy, the so-called Lamy report, where about 3 years ago the first ambitions were formulated on how the future program, Horizon Europe and related, are going to look like. I would like, I'm always happy to compare, let's say, the actual situation to the initial planning. And in red, I have indicated the main headlines at that time. Double the budget, fostering ecosystems, take care about education and training. The programs should be driven by purpose and impact. And as you may know, we had a lot of discussions around the mission orientations. Rationalization and simplification obviously is a driving force, and I think everybody would very much agree with that, but I would like to come back in my presentation on the point Stefan mentioned just before on some of the, how to say, administrative difficulties which we need to find solutions for. Involving the citizens and aligning EU and national investments, and I think ECSEL, again with its tripartite model, is clearly spot on, and obviously we hope that KDT will follow the same route. International cooperation is something we need to get to terms with, especially in the ongoing geopolitical difficulties, looking towards US, looking towards China, the position of Europe. And that is something which has been put on the agenda. The autonomy or the sovereignty, what also been referred to, is something we would need to get very, how to say, very clear strategy and vision on. And communication always has a very important point. The point I want to make with this slide is that we are in, this was written in July 2017. Now we are in September 2020, and we are still discussing on some of these elements in more detail. Especially because, and this is my my next slide, because the ambition is that there are going to be, at least the intention is to have quite some possible European partnerships, and I've laid them out here based on a slide from the ERA Learn program, where, if I'm counted correctly, there are 46 partnerships in different ways and forms. The dark orange are the candidate institutional partnerships, the so-called joint undertakings. We have the light orange, which is the European Institute of Technology. We have the co-programmed, so the contractual PPPs, and we have the co-funded. Split it up into different areas. We have the industry-oriented, energy, transport, mobility, urban environment, and manufacturing. We have on the bottom vertical partnerships related to societal areas, which dealing with health, food, agriculture, bioeconomy, natural resources. And then in the middle, the horizontal partnerships. And we have key digital technologies featuring there. The second on the left-hand side, little small to see. We have the hydrogen, smart networks, HPC, metrology. We have the EIT digital. A lot of partnerships, and obviously they're all fishing in the same financial pond. So what we need to be doing here is to make sure that we clarify what a KDT is all about. What is our diversing point? What is the diversification between all these partnerships? And making sure that we promote ourselves, especially what we have done in the past very, very well. And this promotion should obviously focus towards the items which are on the political agenda. And I'm not going to recap everything, but it's obviously all related to the Green Deal, which is featuring very, very high. On health, again, that is a very high political item. Natural resources, mobility and industry, that is what been passing also before. So message here is that there is a lot of partnerships, and the, how to say, the vision or the overlap of some of these partnerships is obvious. The borderlines are not always very, very clear. Pending issues. So what is going on at this moment in time, and what are the issues which are still featuring? As Stefan already referred to, we all agree with simplification. That is very, very clear. And obviously, if we would have one financial stream, central financial management, that would give obviously quite some benefit. However, we need to take care that also the national funds have to obey their national rules. And that's, at the moment, I think, one of the difficulties of having a combined central financial management, where on one side the GU office, we, and on the other side also the national authorities and national delegations would bring all the funds together and distribute this directly to the beneficiaries through the coordinator. It's very logic that the national delegations would like to understand where their money goes. On the other hand, we have 28 or 30 different individual member states, and if we have to start following each of these funds very individually, it becomes kind of a nightmare, if I may say. So although we all agree, we need to find a way to actually practically implement this. The second issue, which is still pending, it's the funding of the GE office. I think many of you know the system, and obviously in the future, there also has to be a financial contribution from the different associations, from the private partners, into the covering the cost of the administrative office. The previous way is not anymore allowed, so we need to find out a new way which is sufficiently acceptable and fair to everybody in order to bring their share, their 50% of the administrative cost together. Complementary, European Commission is also proposing a common back office amongst all the existing joint undertaking. And again, here, synergy and cost efficiency is the main driving theme. And again, we do not disagree with that, but it does have to be, how to say, practically implementable and allow sufficient care and attention towards the specificities of each of the joint undertaking. Yeah? So it's, you know, the different joint undertakings related to bio, medical, to aviations, to railway, to hydrogen fuel cell, and so on. So it's not always very easy to have, for instance, common messages, common legal aspects, and so on, so on. Funding rates is under discussion at the moment. The current program indicates that public institutions may get higher, SMEs may get higher. Obviously, referred to by Stefan, the industry will be left with the remaining. ECOP, EK, I will try to hurry a little, I only have one slide left. ECOP, EK is the, let's say, financial contribution from the private members, but not in cash, in kind. EK stands for in kind, and there are two parts related to the projects, the ECOP, it's called, but also the EK is related to additional activities. Now, in theory, this is what companies would invest complementary to the ongoing projects. It's very logical, but there's always a big debate on what actually is in and what is not in. And we should be able to clarify that very clearly upfront in the beginning before we actually start running into the KDT and having clearly made commitments. Open access and open access to project result has been a debate. We are very close to the markets. If we opening up our results too quickly, obviously other people may run away with it. As I referred to in my previous slide, the scope and the funding competition with other partnerships does exist. And that's, of course, what we need to take care of. As a conclusion, I think ECSEL is doing very well, and I would like to draw your attention to the picture on the right-hand side and the web link below. We have made a compilation of all quotes and success stories, let's call it, which we have compiled in a brochure, in a leaflet, and it's worthwhile reading it because it actually shows what we have been doing, quoted by many CEOs and CTOs. So that's really a big or very useful document. As I said in the beginning, we started in 2017. We are in 2020 at the moment, 3 months before Horizon Europe is going to start. So we are a little late. We are not alone, I've indicated that, with the 49 other partnerships. And as I listed, there are quite a few things to be discussed and concluded on. So there is still some work to be done in the upcoming next 3 months. I thank you very much for your attention, and I thank you even more for helping us to get us to a strong and very attractive KDT joint undertaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bert Colvenaer, for those insights on ECSEL. Finally, now I would like to hand over to our technical keynote speaker, Markus Riester. He is Chief Technology Officer at Midge Medical GmbH. His presentation is on one of the hottest applications of smart systems in the current COVID-19 crisis, molecular tests for SARS-CoV-2. We are really curious, Mr. Riester. We can't hear you right now. Did you switch on your mic? Yes, we see your presentation.
Now
Perfect.
you see the presentation. I'll try to put it
we hear you
on the screen in a meaningful way. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Somehow. Okay, let's try to see whether this works. Okay, thanks Evelyn for bearing with me here. Mr. Chairman, thank you to EPoSS for inviting me to share insights into the practical implementation of smart system technologies in this keynote. Perhaps giving an indication what results funding programs for technology can yield as a result. What we have witnessed insights into manifold opportunities and actions throughout the session, technological, financial, and other, that are all important for improving Europe in this context, specifically using smart systems. Today, I want to focus on a result. The result I'll present came into existence because of the corona pandemic. It is a combination of a hardware device comprising microelectronics, plastics, software, and what we call bioware, biochemistry, and bioprocessing. The integration of all these disciplines, I believe, certainly can qualify as a smart system. We know that the pandemic is keeping the whole world on high alert. It's caused more than 1 million deaths, hundreds of millions infected, and all humans affected in many ways. I'll try not to reiterate the common knowledge on the disease, but rather concentrate on necessary technologies and implementations that mandate the attention of policymakers across the globe, and of course, specifically also in Europe. So since the onset of the pandemic in December 2019, different pathways have been selected to conquer the pandemic. We've learned some things as mankind. Social distancing, which rather should be called physical distancing, can help to avoid infections. Wearing masks seems to contribute to low infection numbers. General measures for infection control or disease control also can help. Many companies are working on vaccines or on drugs for helping infected. Many other companies are working on different kinds of tests. This is where the action starts. So there are all kinds of different tests for antibodies, which have been promoted very early on. Antigen tests, which are currently very popular, or becoming very popular as they promise on the go testing. Last not least, of course, the workhorse and golden standard of all viral testing, lab-based PCR testing. Now, what has happened over the past weeks is that the WHO has issued a bulletin early September where not PCR testing was named specifically anymore, but so-called nucleic acid amplification tests. To put this into perspective, PCR is only one way of amplifying DNA. So we have looked at this other way of amplifying DNA to enable a device platform that allows massive scaling of tests using nucleic acid amplification technology. So this is where the second title of my talk comes from: how to build 1 billion SARS-CoV-2 tests. Maybe it's an easier to remember title as well. So this is just the legal stuff. So when I was preparing for this keynote, I thought let's see what the difference actually is. So this is what the world looked like in 2019. Most prominent feature: people are getting together. We have crowds, so humans seem to tend to flock together to achieve things. This is completely different when you look at the situation today. What we have is people are in quarantine. People are wearing masks. They are physically separated and also socially separated. So what will happen, and what can we do? No? In 2008, I met Roberto Rigobon, who's a professor of applied economics at an MIT Europe meeting. where we both had a talk, and in his speech he talked about crisis. And one of his thoughts that he's always putting to the front is that after each crisis, there will be a situation where where things will get better again, to then be followed by the next crisis, obviously. So the question is, what can we do to turn what we now observe and feel as a crisis turn into an economic bonanza? And maybe what I will show can provide a part of that. The main objectives that need to be addressed are getting people together again, know that you are not infected. And of course, you have to be sure that the people around you are not infected. So if you break that down to requirements for a test, there are three main requirements. One is the reliability of the test. So you need to reliably detect positive and negative individuals. You have to do this in a rapid fashion. You have a short time to result. Ideally, the result is available immediately. Not so ideal. It's available within a day. This is true for most of the tests that we have now. And the third point is it has to be manufactured in the hundreds of millions, or perhaps the billions that are the subtitle of this talk. So the third point is scalability. So taking all these aspects together for a test, how many tests can be provided for a sufficiently high test frequency with a high sensitivity to also identify mildly infected individuals which may not show symptoms, and make the results available immediately to breach infection chains. So what's important to realize, to this day, none of the tests available can provide all these features. Today, corona tests are mainly rated by their figures of merit, sensitivity, and specificity. From both numbers, higher is better. This is true for the individual test, but for the collective of tests, additional figures of merit come into play, in particular in the fight against a pandemic. So at midge, we've developed a new standard that comprises not only one factor, but actually 6 factors. You'll see the first, the ones that I showed on the previous slide. Added to that, the test needs to be simple. The test needs to provide some infection protection due to the way that's being done. And of course, it has to have an affordable price. So what we've resorted to doing is take this combination of 6 parameters and judge test quality by those 6 parameters and not only by the test reliability. So what kind of opportunity do we see in such an approach? If you look at the graphic on the right upper hand side, there are 2 test strategies that are combined. The lower one, the PCR lab test with a typical time to result of 24 to 72 hours. You have an unclear infection status of the patient that is undergoing such a laboratory PCR test from the time that he has submitted his sample until he actually gets a result, if he gets a result. The test that I will show takes less than half an hour, less than 15 minutes actually. So you immediately get a result on your status and can act immediately. And this is one of the critical parts that needs to be implemented for fighting the pandemic. Ideally, you would want a situation like this. The test is sitting in your bathroom next to your toothbrush, and you can do the test every morning or every other morning, depending upon what you're up to today. So this is kind of the scenario that we conceive for getting the tests into people's homes. I'll just quickly rush through here. This is what the test device looks like. It comes with an app, so you can actually transmit data from the app to a central database to get in a real-time image of the hotspots where people have positive tests, and the health authorities can act upon that. And I will not read all the wording. You can get the presentation afterwards anyhow. So the test procedure is quite simple. In this case, take a nose swab, put the swab into the test container and wash it out. Then just place the test container onto the test device, rotate it by 90 degrees, then the test starts. After 4 minutes, you get a positive result. If it's positive, after about 11 to 12 minutes, you get a result that the test was successful but negative. So that's fairly simple. We are actually taking this technology to apply mouthwash for this particular type of testing, because it's much more convenient, much easier, and even faster. So this is hopefully the result that you'll get. No SARS-CoV-2 virus material detected. As mentioned, figure of merit less than 15 minutes, immediate results, and the possibility to link the data that's generated with, for instance, the Corona One app that's popular in Germany and in other countries, or to central databases like the DHIS2 database that's used in many regions in Africa to implement pandemic control there. Just is some insights into the actual test performance. So we are at par with PCR testing. This is a nucleic acid test. We don't use thermal cycling, but rather a biochemical approach for the amplification process. The technologies are already more than 15 years old. It's been proven in Africa, and now we are re-importing it back to Europe and hopefully across the globe. So maybe as a short summary, this is what we started out with 6 months ago. This is when the project started. We will have the first prototypes available for testing. Actually, now it's September, so within the next 3 to 4 weeks in October as planned. And we hope to get people interested in joining our journey by supporting us on technology, financially, but most of all, getting the word across that there's a technology out there that can save mankind. Again, one thing that I can't dwell on for too long, many of you will have read the news about antigen tests, which are currently put on the market by two major companies. And I again cite the WHO bulletin from early September. In our region, in Europe, with a very low prevalence of the virus, antigen tests, and this is a citation, antigen tests may not be the right approach to conduct testing on a broad scale. What we have done is we've diligently read through the literature, looked at all the leaflets that come along with the tests, and I can only recommend to everyone to diligently read those leaflets to see the merit that those tests have. There is some scientific evidence that is currently being put together, not by us, but by several institutions, a Harvard study that clearly shows the possibilities, but also the limitations of those antigen tests. So coming to a close, I think what is the message is that the funding that has gone into technology in Europe through all the smart system integration, microelectronics and manufacturing technologies can yield technology as we are implementing it right now. The major components are and I should say the more costly components come from Europe, from European companies. The prototyping is being done in Europe for for volume manufacturing, we actually need to reach out to Asia. But of course, we'll also be very happy to do some volume manufacturing in Europe as well. So I think I've used up my time. Thank you all for your kind attention, and thanks.
Thanks to you, Mr. Riester, for your presentation on this highly topical subject. We are now coming to the questions and answers panel and have already received some questions from the audience. If there are any additional questions now, you are welcome to still ask them via chat or in the question tab. I would like to ask all the speakers of the opening session to turn on your cameras now for the questions and answers panel. Our speakers will try to answer as many questions as possible. Mr. Finkbeiner, would you like to start?
Yes, I'll start. So thank you very much to all speakers. I think it's really, I'm impressed that we almost stayed in time. So we have enough time for questions, and I can encourage you to file more questions. We can also still answer them, I'm quite sure. I want to start with one question, which is going to Mr. Mengel. And the question is, how do you see the balance between KDT and Eureka?
Thank you very much. The historical perspective is that Eureka was the trigger for the union programs of microelectronics, ENIAC, and later ECSEL. In that respect, Eureka is very important, and Eureka today is different. We do have a full-fledged electronics and systems program at the EU level, so we do have the leeway, the opportunity, the freedom to use the Eureka mechanism, not just to duplicate what we do on EU level, but better to capitalize on the flexibility of the Eureka measure to explore new topics, to go in specific fields faster ahead. For instance, AI, where the EU level programs need a longer time to prepare and to adopt. So we need to capitalize on the unique selling points of the Eureka programs. And coming back to the concrete future of Penta versus KDT, I think we should use Penta as really spearheading new topics which later could be adopted under KDT. That would justify to have both programs in parallel. However, as I mentioned, we have serious problems at the moment with the current proposal of KDT. So sometimes it seems to be, in a way, comfortable to have two EU or two European measures to collaborate. And that's why we also are committed to support Eureka in the future. You mentioned that focused projects are a primary goal of EPoSS, and we support strongly to have more focused projects both in KDT and also under Eureka. However, this is not depending only from the program as such. How focused the project is depends also from the consortium and the people who build it. So focused projects, yes, but under both schemes, also the SME contribution to KDT is important for us, and SMEs are important under Eureka. So both is important. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you very much with Mr. Mengel. We continue with a question going to Lucilla Sioli and Stefan Mengel. And the question is, do we have to worry about KDT in general? Will KDT still start on time with financial rules, central management not fixed yet? What are your expectations? Maybe Lucilla takes this first.
We certainly hope and we count on KDT starting on time. Of course, you know, there have been a number of delays, also due to the fact that there is a delay in the agreement of the multi-annual financial framework. So the budgets are really not there yet. So we, at the moment, also do not know how much budget will go to, from the Commission at least, to the next JU for the next 7 years. So there is a number of delays. As you heard, there are important discussions ongoing with the member states because we think, the European Commission thinks, that we should move to more simplification of the joint undertaking and more consistency in favor of the beneficiaries and the participants to the program, which sometimes complain because they are treated very differently, paid at very different times, and so on. So we do want to move towards simplification, reduction of complexity, more consistency across the program, and we have to find a way with the member states to be able to achieve that in the near future. So we are discussing with the member states, and I very much believe in the process of discussions, including in the Council. The Commission will come forward relatively soon with a regulation, which will then become Council regulation for the joint undertakings. And I think that also, you know, the last touch of the discussions will take place there, and hopefully before the end of the year and during the German presidency.
Mr. Mengel, to add something, or?
There's not much to add. Indeed, we hope to overcome some hurdles. We definitely support simplification. However, we cannot sacrifice the obligations our parliament imposes on us on controlling the national funds, the taxpayers' money. This is something we can't sacrifice, not even for simplification. So we have to find a balanced way to implement the tripartite model with less bureaucracy, but with ensuring the member states control rights over their budgets, over their national contribution.
Thank you very much for these answers. And there's a question to me, and the question is if the MEMS forecast is a good forecast for smart systems in total as a whole, and the answer is no. There are a significant amount of more smart systems which are not based on MEMS, but it's very likely that MEMS are part of the smart systems. But the answer is no, we have much more smart systems than we have MEMS systems only. And there's a question to Markus. And the question is the whole chain of developing in smart systems, sensor, actor, hardware, software, available in midge medical? And do you even need a network to accomplish this?
Yes, thanks for the question. I think I'll go a little into the history of midge medical. When I mentioned that we started out 6 months ago, the company was 3 years old then. We were developing a test for CRP, blood-based test, lateral flow assay. Due to the corona pandemic, we switched sides to nucleic acid testing. So yes, there's a considerable demand, or there was a considerable demand for getting brains on board, both in terms of microelectronics, manufacturing, biochemistry, bioware, as we call it, and of course software. The company's grown to about 55 people over the past 6 months, and we have been able to get people on board, highly specialized people from every domain that we need, which does not mean that we don't have more demand. So we are really looking forward to interested individuals that can contribute further to our mission and move this technology into a large volume manufacturing scenario.
Great. Of course, EPoSS is a cluster of networking also in connecting different entities, research entities with industries, industries with industries. Whenever there's a need, we can help you also to connect, or if you have really intentions to also go in public funding, talk to us with respect to opportunities in the future.
Thank you very much.
Next question going to Christian right now. So I talked about that EPoSS is cooperating with EPoSS or integrating in EPoSS. What is your intention? How to continue with the Eureka clusters for smart systems? How do you see this integration, and what are opportunities you would support to leverage us?
Well, thanks for the question, Stefan. I think that coming from a very good base, which was perhaps a little overcome by the years, it's good that this new regime on the cluster topic is about to come in, and also including EPoSS. And I think we will take the best of both worlds, namely what were the best practices from the past and include them with open systematic calls or also topical calls in the future. So that's what I see, and these are all the discussions that are going on right now within the Eureka network.
Thank you very much. There's another question for Lucilla Sioli. So how do we get SMEs in the funding? So it's a high effort, and some SMEs are also hesitant because there's a high risk that it's not paying off. So how do we get the SMEs into the European funding?
Well, first, I would like to highlight that we have got a number of SMEs into the ECSEL program. I mean, we seem to forget that I think about a third of the participants to ECSEL were actually small, medium enterprises, which is probably a higher share than in many other research programs, including other JUs. So I think the share we had in ECSEL is a very important element to keep in mind. The issue there has been that the distribution of the budget was such that SMEs actually only received around, if I'm not wrong, around 15% rather than 30%. So the question is, how can we increase the share of the budget that goes to the small, medium enterprises rather than the mere number of small, medium enterprises? One instrument that we have is obviously the funding rate. So if we could maybe increase the amount of the funding rate that goes to small, medium enterprises, that could already be an element of that could be helpful. Having said that, these are decisions that do not depend on DG Connect only, but they will be, also discussed with the member states, but also with the central services of the Commission, because Horizon Europe does take a different approach, and we are working in the context of Horizon Europe. Other ways could be making sure that, or facilitating the participation of small, medium enterprises in consortia that define interests, and this could be very much done also with the help of the member states that are much closer to the small, medium or the industry associations that are much closer to the small, medium enterprises than we can ever be. One could even think of imposing a super objective, from the top and saying, look, I want that the budget to distribute it in a way that, I don't know, 1/5, 1/6 goes to small, medium enterprises. I'm not very, so much favorable to this because it would introduce further constraints in the distribution of the budget, which is already, when we have consortia participating to the projects, we already expect to have consortia that were the participants that which already have an optimal organization from the point of view of the participants. So we wouldn't certainly want to be choosing projects on the basis of the identity of the participants. So, but there are a number of levers we can use, including the funding, and also we will invite certain industry associations like yours and the others to actively engage and reach out to small, medium enterprises, maybe more than was done in the past.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucilla. I think we are perfectly in time right now. If there are not more questions, I would hand over. I would like the opportunity to say thank you to all the participants, and especially thank you to all the speakers to open up this year's forum. So I want to close the panel discussion right now and hand over to the moderator. Thanks to all of you for participating in this session.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you also very much to all the panelists and to our EPoSS chairman, Stefan Finkbeiner. I hope we have been able to answer your questions as far as possible. And looking ahead, we have to close this panel now. We take a short break and meet here again at 12 o'clock.